We're in a full-blown banking crisis, and people don't even understand what's going on here. I mean, I study this stuff around the clock, as you know. I can tell people that beyond any shadow of any doubt, the entire financial system right now is being consolidated. They're allowing certain institutions to fail, but they're going to hide this from the public. Again, nobody knows until everybody knows. So you don't hear anything like this from the mainstream media. But the fact of the matter is, the system is coming apart.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for June 17th through June 24th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Ital Preziosi Silver Kilo bars at just $1.79 over spot per ounce. We also have a highly limited supply of 1/10-ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always delighted to have this wildly popular returning guest. Gregory Mannarino, the founder of TradersChoice.net, joins us this Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Greg, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoy being on your show, honestly.
It's been a long journey for both of us. We met back at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium in Las Vegas in person after having interviewed you several times, and you with my son's channel as well before that. And it's been a great opportunity to grow together, and our audience is growing together, and you've built quite a following there. You are prolific in publishing updates multiple times per day, and even posting video updates multiple times per day, and keeping people on top of what's going on geopolitically, what's going on in the markets, what's going on that's going to affect our lives, and also commenting pretty frequently on the lies that we're being told by mainstream sources and by officialdom, governments, and by the bankers, etc. And who's really pulling the strings behind all these financial manipulations that are getting blamed on all kinds of things. I saw recently about inflation. Our current president was describing to people, he said, you know how packages are getting smaller for the same price? He said, that's corporate greed. That's corporate greed. And it's like, yeah, keep pointing away from the fact that, yes, everybody's, including corporations, are having to try to sweep inflation under the rug because they're afraid that if the public really acknowledges and wakes up to the fact of how badly they're getting burned, that there'll be riots in the streets. And anyway, you also publish the Mannarino Market Risk Indicator, MMRI, on an ongoing basis. And that's been pretty active recently. So could we start there with risks levels that you see in the market and where you see those concentrations of risk happening and what people need to be aware of that they're not being told by the mainstream financial press?
Oh, this is huge. Right now, we're witnessing a phenomenon. I think that a lot of people expected. I've discussed this on my blog here. Artificially suppressed rates here. The propping up of the market moving towards the presidential selection. We have again a mysterious entity out here buying a heck of a lot of debt, and that mechanism is keeping rates suppressed, opening up a doorway for cash to make its way into the stock market. And of course, we're getting record high on the back of continuing dollar devaluation. And this phenomenon, it's not going to stop until it does. And I sincerely believe we're going to see this play out to a much greater degree as we move closer to the presidential selection here. The distractions, the deceptions you spoke about, the look here, the don't look over there. The fact that central banks are in a race to the bottom here, none more so than the Fed, with regard to currency devaluation, what we can expect moving forward here, the dismantling, the deconstruction of the current system is in full swing. And a part of that is the illusion of the markets. People have to understand. I mean, like most people, they look at their 401ks, they look at their investment plans, and they see it going up and up and up. This illusion is an extremely powerful thing. People believe, I mean, and this is complete insanity on a grand scale, that there is a connection here between the economy and the market, and there isn't none. I mean, just as an example of that, just this morning, we got a consumer spending report, retail sales, both coming in way lower than expected. Meanwhile, the market's higher. How does that work? The continuing bad economic news, it doesn't matter anymore. In fact, the worse it gets, the faster, and I've been telling people this for I don't know how long, that the economy free falls, the higher the market's going to go. It's a phenomenon. It's a paradox, but that's the way it's going to go here. But again, this is opportunity for people to get involved in looking for assets that are massively undervalued. Again, going back to what I think is both of our favorite assets in this world, and that is silver or gold, silver more specifically, for me especially. And look, if we realize that the entire system is rigged against us and nothing is what it appears to be, this is no comedy of errors that got us here. Okay, if we realize this is going to, unfortunately, progress in a very predictable way, we know who our enemy is, we know what they want. I'm talking about central banks here. That gives us power. It gives us strength. And we have to come together. We have to, they're trying to separate us, right? We have to unite. We have to come together and understand what's going on here so we can take the appropriate action. And part of this here is the deceptions, the distractions, the look here, this don't look there, the artificial propping up of the stock market, the risk on environment, meaning, again, suppressed rates open up that doorway for cash to make its way into the stock market. There's a lot of hype right now around AI. In fact, I just put a tweet out about this. Be very leery here about this hype going around with artificial intelligence. I am not saying that the tech sector isn't going to put on gains. I believe they sincerely are, especially in the face of suppressed rates. Suppressed rates are very tech positive. So I expect to see tech to do well moving forward as well, until it doesn't, until this election, and then we'll see. I think a whole new set of dynamics are going to be thrown at us after the presidential selection, and then moving into next year. The way I see things lining up doesn't look pretty moving into next year, unfortunately. But for now, the opportunities are abounding, and they're still going to be. They're still going to be. Again, they can play their games, but I believe that the people that follow our work are honestly smarter than the throngs of people that are being programmed, and I mean this in the literal way, by the mainstream media, being told where to look, the deceptions, the distractions, told who to hate. You know what I mean? This kind of thing here. It's and this is nothing new. This is going back thousands and thousands of years. But anyway, that's how I see it right now.
One of the things you mentioned there was the common broadcasting of the market indexes like the Dow Jones average and so on, which are not reflective of the broader market. There are a few leaders, the AI tech sector, as you mentioned, that are holding up the whole average. And yet, in the face of these increasing headline numbers that are being put out for the major averages that give this wealth effect where people feel that they're doing better, we're seeing the reality, and you've pointed this out for some time, of central banks doing just about the opposite all around the world as far as amassing physical metals and repatriating metals onto their home turf if they were stored overseas, et cetera. Can you talk to us about the dichotomy of actions, watch their actions, not their words, between what the major, those who are at the highest level of the food chain financially are doing versus what the average person is seeing and doing, and what's being broadcast on the mainstream financial media?
Absolutely. Not only are we seeing a phenomenon that's been going on for quite a while with central banks acquiring gold, and I'm certain silver as well here. But what I said today in my morning video was we need to mimic or copy not only what central banks are doing, but what the 1% and 2%ers are doing. But you see, when people talk about the rich or the super wealthy, these people more than likely are cash poor. They have liquid assets here, but they're not holding a lot of central bank issued currency anywhere around the world. The 1% and 2%ers have their wealth in other things here. So we need to say, okay, well, what are they doing? What are central banks doing? And I could look, it should be a no-brainer to people, really honestly, that understanding the current situation here, and let's just talk at what some of the root causes of the current global inflationary environment are. That is, again, central banks in a race to the bottom to destroy the purchasing power of their currency. If we know that's going on, and they are the ones that are doing this. Well, why are they the ones here that are hoarding gold? Why are the 1% and 2%ers hoarding gold, gaining exposure to commodities here? Why? Because they realize where this is going, just as you and I have way before everybody else. And so understanding, we need to do what they're doing because they're not stupid. The 1% and 2%ers, then maybe they're privy to a little more information than, let's say, the average guy or the average girl is. So if they know something and they're doing something about it, well, that means that we need to take action as well. That's what this is all about here. Your channel, my channel, people like us who are trying to raise awareness. I've been telling people, raise your awareness, pay attention to what's going on, ignore the distractions, the deceptions. If we realize that, it just gives us enormous power. Again, at least from a financial standpoint, to realize, again, look, if we and I believe this is probably true for the people that follow our blog, at least both of our work, and I would hope this is the fact, that they understand that when you are looking at the global picture of vastly ballooning hyper debt, I mean, we're not just in a debt situation, we're in a hyper debt situation. What did we just hear last week from Janet Yellen, that the U.S. debt situation is sustainable? By that phrase alone, we know that it's completely not sustainable. We don't need Janet Yellen to try to convince us to something that we already know is completely false. But this mechanism is going to keep going. And in my opinion, look, we're witnessing global debt. And I urge people to look this up for themselves. Don't take my word for a thing that I say. Okay. I want people to let their fingers do the walking. It's not like you have to go to a library anymore and look this stuff up. Everything's at your fingertips here. If you look at the pace at which global debt is ballooning, it's taken on a whole different meaning now. It's gone hyper parabolic. And this mechanism tells us, or at least it should, that we are more than likely very near a cracking point, a breaking point in the system. And that's why I look towards next year, past the presidential selection, to say I think things could potentially change dramatically. But for now, I think the opportunities lie in a couple of places. One is staying long the stock market. I know this might sound insane to people, but if we realize that rates are going to remain suppressed, that currency is going to accelerate with regard to it being devalued, that's very stock market positive, okay, until it's not. And we watch the MMRI, as you had brought up. That's an amazing risk indicator. It's not the end all, okay, but it does give us a window, a picture as to where we should be putting cash to work. Now, if we realize that the stock market is going to remain propped up, the illusion of the market is going to be maintained till the selection here, that means that other assets are going to become undervalued more so than they are now. And again, gold, that brings me right back to gold, silver, platinum, palladium, commodities across the board. And in my opinion, I also believe cryptocurrencies too.
So your thought process is multifaceted here. You're looking at, first of all, the big picture of the lies that are being spun to distract us from what's really going on, the fragmentation, the divide and conquer strategy to keep us pitted against each other in little sub-fractions that keep multiplying, rather than being aware of who is perpetrating, the few that are actually perpetrating this planned theft of our futures on the populace. Can you talk to us for a moment about how you see that playing out if for those people who don't wake up by watching alternative sources, because if they're relying on the mainstream sources, they're going to be being fed this thing. You just stay 100% in the market and you ride out the bumps and they'll experience the brunt of what's coming after this fall. So for those who are affected in that way, what do you see playing out if people don't wake up, if people don't start seeking out this information that's available outside of the mainstream?
I think people need to realize that the system, everything that we're seeing is now is happening by design. Okay, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but nothing that we're witnessing is just again a comedy of errors that got us here. This is deliberate. Who runs the economy? Who runs the financial markets, the financial system as a whole, the monetary system as a whole? It's a central bank, so they control everything, even the flow of information. If you watch, anyone that watches the mainstream media notices, and I notice this all the time, and it drives me crazy, a particular phenomenon. That is, they say the same things word for word at the same time. You turn on Bloomberg, you turn on Fox Business, you turn on CNBC, all of a sudden, by some miracle, at the same moment in time, they're telling you the same story, and they're saying it in the same way. And the wording, the choosing of the words is very specific. And I always pay attention to this. Okay, what are they doing now? For example, let's say I'm watching CNBC and I all of a sudden see a particular theme. I immediately start to switch channels. Are they saying the same thing? And invariably, I would say 90% of the time, maybe more so, they're telling you the same story. So if they're saying the same thing, that means they're getting the same script. Obviously, why would they be at exactly the same time? It's like a psyop on a massive scale, because most people get their information from these mainstream outlets here. You and me, we're outliers here, and the people that follow our work, they're few and far between. If you look at, unfortunately, and I mean this in the biggest way, unfortunately, you and me, our followers, I mean, collectively, we don't even scratch the surface as to what the mainstream media gets. But again, that's their mechanism here. It's just, feed people this, have them look there, and make them, think their lives are beautiful and dandy, and there's going to be some kind of a saving grace coming for them. It sets them up for a great fall. And that's what people are being set up for, a great fall at multiple levels. So if we can control at least some of that, realizing what's going on here, understanding what actions we need to take, and realize, again, the biggest thing here, okay, they want us, again, to hate each other. Okay, the right wing wants you to hate the left wing. The blues want you to hate the. This is just the way it is, and that mechanism gives them enormous power, putting us against each other. But if what do they hate? What do they hate more than anything else? People congregating, like-minded people getting together here, because there's power. They want to keep you separated. They want to keep you not looking at each other, not seeing facial expressions. This is all huge, okay? And I think something like that's going to come back. In fact, I did a video this morning where I said, we live in a crisis-to-crisis mechanism. Obviously, I think it's very possible that we're going to see, obviously, expanding crisis, another crisis come up here moving forward here. But it's not going to be, at least in my perspective, in the markets. They got to keep them propped up. They won't allow. We're in a full-blown banking crisis, and people don't even understand what's going on here. I mean, I study this stuff around the clock, as you know. I can tell people that beyond any shadow of any doubt, the entire financial system right now is being consolidated. They're allowing certain institutions to fail, but they're going to hide this from the public. Again, nobody knows until everybody knows. So you don't hear anything like this from the mainstream media. But the fact of the matter is, the system is coming apart, and it's coming apart very rapidly. The smaller institutions, the regional institutions, people need to get their cash out of these things, put their cash somewhere else. I think people should not be holding large amounts of cash at all, because it's a dying asset. But anyway, look, as I said, it's multifaceted. But if you look at the root cause of the problem here, that central banks are going to continue to inflate, buy it all, because that's their goal, to be the lenders and buyers of last resort as the economy is in free fall, and that gives us all opportunity here. But the main thing is, don't let them divide us. We need to come together. The more we come together, and the more we love each other, seriously, because, we're one people here on this planet, the better off we're all going to be. The more hate that they can foster in any way they can, the weaker we become as a people, unfortunately.
There's several aspects of what you just went through that I wanted to recap on. One is this illusion of diversity. You mentioned, no matter what channel you turn to on the mainstream media, you'll be shocked at how often, if you pay close attention, they're not only talking about the same stories, and that's understandable. If something big happens, that all those news channels are going to want to race to talk about it. But the fact that they're using the same phrases, the same sentences, the same key words, really could only happen logically if they're reading off the same script.
Boom. I mean, They're reading a teleprompter. Let's just, like, people like you and me, this is us. We don't have a teleprompter. No one's telling you what to read. No one's telling me what to read. But if they're saying the same phrases, they're reading the same thing. Doesn't that drive you crazy? It drives me crazy. It's so obvious to me.
Well, there's two aspects about that. One is that means there's a common source, and that's what you've been pointing out. Is don't look down here, look up here, and go, wait a minute. If they're all reading from the same page of notes, who's actually writing the notes? Because that's what came out when we saw during the Trump presidency that he got deplatformed. It's like, wait a minute, somebody just deplatformed the president of the United States. Who is that has the power to do that?
Who has that kind of power, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this unnamed, unknown, anonymous. So it's pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So that's one thing. The other thing is that aspect of the illusion of diversity, that we feel empowered when we feel we have choices. If somebody says you can only do this, that's the only thing you can say. It's the only thing you can think. It's the only thing. If somebody says it that way, that gets our neck hair sticking up, because we don't like to be pushed around as humans. But to think, you could flip the channel. You can go to 12 different channels. So you have freedom. No, it's freedom to choose between the 12 different channels that are all saying the exact same thing. So there's this illusion of diversity, and that can happen in our supermarkets as well. You go in there and you look for healthy food. You go, wait a minute, I'm in the cereal aisle. There are 150 different brands here, and not one of them is healthy, and they all contain corn syrup or whatever it is, in the drink aisle, whatever. So any comments on that, the illusion of diversity, before we move on?
Oh, absolutely. The illusion of choice is very. If people believe that what they do and or say is going to make any difference here, unfortunately, that is just an illusion. I really believe that. And, going back to what you just said, this is a fascinating thing. I want people to pay attention to this. When you go to the supermarkets, if you look around, they put a particular type of food product directly in your sight. Generally, these are things loaded with sugar that are bad for you, and they feel like you're going to grab these first. This is part of the mechanism here of making the public ill by design. So Big Pharma can profit here. People can remain diabetic here. Eat food that's loaded with salt. It's all within your sight. All the good stuff is going to be way out of your sight here. They don't want to keep it's amazing. And I urge people to pay attention to this. Just walk through a supermarket and look at what's in your direct sight. All the junk, all the good stuff, not so much. OK, and unfortunately, they make it. What they do is obviously they want to keep us ill here. Okay, the job here is to keep people dependent on the system. That means keeping them sick, making them have to take a particular drug that's supposed to make them well, at least making them sicker anyway. The diet here, especially here in the United States, is poisonous to us all. I think that's pretty obvious. And me practicing medicine for 20 years, I think I have a pretty good perspective on what's happening with the disease processes, unfortunately, that people are being forced to have. I don't want to say it that way. It's really the truth. But they also put the good stuff here, not only out of sight of people, but they also make it more expensive for you too. In other words, okay, here's the good stuff. It's out of your sight, and it's going to cost you more to eat the good food. It really doesn't cost them. It costs more for them to add products to something than to keep it natural. The natural stuff, obviously, costs less to produce than the unnatural stuff that they load up with nonsense is going to make you sick. But meanwhile, it costs more. It's an incredible situation here. But again, going back to it, look, we're being controlled. The illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice is a very powerful thing. And that's that's how they put people against each other. The fact of the matter is we have no choice here. We're not free to do anything. We're free to live in their system. We're free to transact in what they want us to transact in. The news outlets, all with the same freaking stories here. It's just, what are we free to do? People are we're not even free to congregate. They got to keep you separated. They got to keep people apart by a certain amount of feet. Very specific. You ever wonder during the whole scamdemic, why was 6 chosen? There's a reason for that too. I mean, we could go on and on and on about all this here, but there's a reason for it. And another thing I always tell people, people take this stuff in and they don't think about what's actually behind it all. What's going on here? That's why I say, people, please raise your awareness. When you hear something that maybe hits you the wrong way, it's hitting you the wrong way for a reason, because we all have a God-given intellect. That's fact. Okay. When you hear something that maybe, hold on a minute, something seems off more than likely it is off. So just pay attention to what's happening, people, and that's your greatest strength.
The other thing I wanted to follow up on was your emphasis on this divide and conquer, keeping us separate from each other and having us focus on our differences more than on what unites us. And there's that old song from the 60s about people. It seems so simple to me. People all over the world just want to be free. That principle of being free and having sound money so that the fruits of your labor actually will benefit you and your family and your future and not just go into the pockets of the bankers and the politicians is something that I think we can all respect and all resonate to. And people all over the world wanting their beloved country to be a country, to have borders and to have rule of law so that they can have an orderly society and plan. People want to be able to look forward to a better tomorrow. And that takes the rule of law and order in a country so that you can have businesses that aren't going to get rampaged and have gangs, burning down buildings and that kind of thing while the police are told to stand down, and public prosecutors are being supported by certain individuals with famous names and deep pockets are now making certain categories, entire swaths of categories of crimes non-prosecutable in their areas so that it's open season on looting and shoplifting and a lot of other crimes, so that it makes you realize that this divide and conquer strategy means it's something that is put in place prior to, as you said, a big reveal. The big reveal is something a cataclysmic, earth-changing, life-changing, history-changing shift, but it's important that the people be fragmented and fractured prior to that. So if you're gonna pull a really big one, you want to make sure that the people can't unite against you and certainly don't see you as the cause of the disruption of all of their lives and futures. Do you want to speak to that idea that this is how you till the soil, you prepare the stage for a big climatic crisis, is by making sure that people are all fractured and divided and aren't able to communicate effectively with each other and understand what's affecting them that they're united about?
Absolutely. Fractured, divided, and dependent. They need to create, and it's in full swing, dependency on the system. So when the new system comes, look, it's always the same story: problem, reaction, solution. Go back in history as far back as you want to go. It always follows that same algorithm: problem, reaction, solution. And then it's anger too. Okay, those people that are seeing everything you just outlined. Okay, it creates this feeling of anger, of fear. Fear is a mechanism that is, again, been used as a weapon against us all since the beginning of time. I've been telling people on my blog, I don't know, for over 10 years now, if they can make you afraid of anything, just one thing, even if it's completely unrelated to something, once they have that fear in your head of whatever it might be, whatever you personally may be afraid of, you're actually done here. That's a trapdoor. And I always tell people to be very careful not to step into these trapdoors that they set for you. Number one is fear. Once they make you afraid, they can control every single aspect of your mind and your life, because that's how it's going to just play out here, making people paranoid, and then get them to focus on things. Again, look, when one of these events happens, like you just had said, like a looting of a particular, then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, this is going to happen in my neighborhood, and it's going to get even worse. And then you got the media pounding on it. Focus on this. Look at what's happening here. Maybe in one bad event out of maybe 100 good ones, but focus on this one here. But the fact of the matter is this: look, it's about, and I've been telling people, look out for what they're doing is creating more dependency on the system, which gives central banks a reason to inflate even further. And people are going to surrender their liberties willingly, more so the more dependent they are on the system. I've been telling people for years, and you probably heard me say that we need a revolution here. And the fact of the matter is, they know that. They got to prevent a revolution because they need dependency. If they create people that are dependent on the system, the current system, which is being taken apart piece by piece, these people are going to beg for a solution. Please help us when this comes down. They're going to look to the same individuals that are destroying the current system by design for help. And they already have a solution. of course, in their favor here. Again, the society today is being deconstructed and reconstructed into a neo-feudal system. Extreme haves, extreme have-nots. But to make this happen, they got to create extreme dependency. And that's what we're seeing now. And I think it's going to accelerate more so moving forward, unfortunately.
Another thing that you just talked about is so key, because you mentioned what's natural, or what God gives us, is good for us, and it's given to us freely. The rain, the sunshine, the soil, it's available for us, and yet we end up eating this manufactured, processed, toxic, the high fructose corn syrup, and taking all the medications and everything, and people can't have missed, if you look critically, that the amount of advertising minutes, which advertisements were getting shorter since we were kids. When we were kids, they were like 1 minute long ads for soap or whatever. And then it got down to be 30-second ads, and it got down to be 15-second ads. And now they're back to being long again, because there's some very deep pockets from all these medical companies that are making these long ads that you look at, they consume hours of the day if you watch the different channels. And they never say this, you'll be well. You'll just be well, and that's what this is going to be. You're going to restore health. No, it's not about health. It's about managing these symptoms. And now you're going to give this long list of other toxic symptoms, but then you can take another drug. You can take it together with this drug because the first drug didn't get you well enough. And then you list the symptoms, and the symptoms are horrible that they say that you're likely to get from these drugs. So this idea of dependency on something that isn't natural, something that isn't from God, is going to be what you're going to need, because you know how you are, so fragile and frail. We have teaching farmer Joel Salatin on our channel periodically, and he talks about the contrast that he lives through when he sees people coming out. Even during the pandemic, they came out to their farm to buy things from their farmer's market, and he said, on our farm, pandemic or not, the sun came up every morning, and the cows needed milking, and the strawberries were growing, and we were getting fresh air and sunshine and having a good time, appreciating the blessings that God was showering upon us. And he said people came out from the cities, and there was abject fear in their eyes, and they're wearing their double masks, and they're just agitated and stressed and anxious and fearful. He said there's never been a clearer contrast to him. And now, with prices and inflation going up and up and up on these farmers all over the country being stressed to the limit because they can't afford to pay for the expensive patented seeds and the patented chemical treatments and the patented fertilizers and all that stuff that they got to put on this stuff. He says, we don't buy any of that stuff. We don't have to import, he says, any fertilizers or on and on. And we don't have drought problems because we have such good ground cover. So proper, as you said, proper natural use of things brings health and brings peace and brings a sense of serenity. So that's a good thing for all of us to remember. And as you've pointed out also, seeing the commonalities, reaching out to our neighbors. And that's something that you've reminded people every single Friday about for years. So maybe we should focus on that. If you would, remind us about what is common, what brings us together, and what we need to do right where we're planted, to bloom right where we're planted, and to make our bodies, our own selves, our families, and our communities healthier places for us to live and thrive, and to be resistant to these fear and divide tactics that are being thrown at us.
Let me say this real quick while you're on this. It's something else I want people to pay attention to. Going back to the pharmaceutical companies, look how they sell this stuff to you. Okay, I urge people to pay attention to this. When they're basically the common theme that you're going to see through every advertisement on the television, the television here, they're going to show you, a pharmaceutical company is going to show people in an outside environment. Okay, it's always outside, and it's a slow motion thing. This is how they're selling this to you. It's an outside environment, a beautiful, very serene thing here by a stream or they're trying to almost show you that it's a natural thing. Obviously, it's not. That's what they're trying to do. It's the sell here. You need this drug. Look how happy these people are. They're all smiling and they're happy, and this person taking this drug. But look at the serenity, the naturalness of all this. It's how it's sold to you. It's an incredible thing here, the mind manipulation. Now, the other thing is, and I want people to pay attention, as much as people are going to, politics has become the new religion, unfortunately. But let me let people in on a big secret here. Maybe they don't know. Every government is illegal. They're all illegal. Everyone around this world, the government system is illegal. We're supposed to. This isn't the way God wanted it here. Okay, we were so if people that claim to be follower of whatever God they follow, it's always the same thing, that the God is going to provide for them. But now it's the government that is going to provide for them. So the government becomes God in many ways. Politics becomes God. Give us this day our daily bread. Sound familiar to anybody out here? That's the dependency on God, saying God is going to take care of me. But now it's the government is going to take care of me. Government has replaced God, even in those people who believe that they are followers of God. It's the government now that has become their savior, their saving grace here. That's going to provide for them. They read the Bible. They study the Bible. They read it. Don't sink in. They can study it all they want to. Are you going to follow it? Do you believe it's the government that's going to take care of you? These illegal entities that were put in to rule over us? Really? Is that the way it's supposed to be? Or is God supposed to rule over all of us people? I mean, come on, wake the freak up. This whole thing is very twisted, man. But it's interesting how you and I touch on these things every time we talk. And I love that it's not just it's the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, we don't need these freaking governments here, these illegal entities that have been put over us here to rule. No, it's not that at all. And the illusion of choice here, everything we have is not provided by the government. We should be looking for that to be provided by, again, God Almighty, if you believe that. Obviously, I'm a spiritual person. You could probably see that. But I depend on God to provide for me, not the government to provide for me. God's going to give me what I need. And you know what? He always does. It's the truth. I don't know another way to put it.
And also on that topic that you remind us of every Friday, how we can come together as people to support each other, take good care of ourselves, our families, and our communities.
Yeah, every Friday, people love each other, care about each other, and be charitable. That's it. Imagine if we all adopted that kind of a mentality here. Do you think the world would be in the state of affairs that it is? Do you think you, all of us here, some of us that are not doing so well, would be in the state of affairs you are now? I don't think so. I think if we all adopted that kind of a mentality, we could change the world. One person could change the world. I really believe that. So imagine what we can do if we unite. Pretty amazing stuff.
I want to encourage everyone who's watching this, if anything we've said here is valuable to you, if it resonates with something inside you, strikes a chord that you feel is important, and important not just in your life, but in the lives of your families, friends, neighbors, coworkers, associates, please share this video as widely as you can. Please encourage people to take a step outside the cave, which is Plato's allegory of the cave. Take outside, turn off the idiot box long enough to think for a moment and take a fresh breath and realize that we need to reset each of us individually so that then we can reset as communities, etc. I have a very good acquaintance who is just finished his training as a sheriff's deputy. He did that in his 60s. He went through the whole 9 yards, the whole training, the testing, the everything to get through this. It was a multi-month process. And he got made fun of a lot by some of the other younger recruits and that sort of thing. When they asked him, why are you doing this? He said, to stand up for freedom. And he's absolutely sincere, humble, sincere, and self-sacrificing. He wants to help do the constitutional thing to help be a local grassroots supporter of a healthy community in which he lives. And each of us can find that thing that we can do. Greg, you've talked about helping an elderly neighbor. You've talked about helping ill relative or whatever. So we can all find out things to do. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a next door neighbor in our community who has dementia, and he went missing. And everyone was really concerned. He's got been dehydrated in the past and that sort of thing. But now we activated the community emergency response team. We called the Sunshine Committee, which has like 200 people on the mailing list and phone list to let everybody know. And within a very short period of time, he was located. He was safe. He was got back home. But we can help each other out more than we're being told. We're much more resilient, and we have the support of our Creator every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. Any closing thoughts from you, Greg, before we wrap?
I think you summed that up pretty darn well. It's the truth here. We need to come together, not be separated. They fear that more than anything else. So imagine the power that we can have to change things if we did come together, but they won't allow it. They got to keep you hating your neighbor instead of loving your neighbor. It's astonishing, really, how people have fallen through these trapdoors that have been set for them. And, we've been warned about all this. Haven't we all been warned about the things that we're seeing here? But what are you doing about it is what I want to know. What are people doing about it? Are they just sitting here doing nothing, or are they taking action? Like you said, look out, care for people. Try to start your own blog. People are free to use my material. None of this stuff is copywritten. Use everything I say. Use it over again. Get it out there and share this video, people. I think we covered a lot here, you and me, right now, with people that they need to hear. And I think this is a critical video, one of our best we've ever done.
We're grateful for you, Gregory Mannarino. If people want to find you online, I know you're easier than ever to find, which is great. But where should they go to get started?
Go to my website or just Google me. You will find me somewhere. I'm pretty easy to find.
Okay, folks, I'll make it a little bit more specific from my side. If you want to don't miss a single episode with Greg or any of our guests, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your email address and click submit. You'll have to confirm on the confirming email, but then you're opted in. We'll give you one email per day with our latest interviews and any specials. And every interview with Greg will be in there. You won't miss a single one. Greg, traderschoice.net. And I always subscribe to your, so I get your podcasts, your brief morning and evening updates and the weekend update as well. So folks, don't miss out on that opportunity. It's all free. Greg, thanks for joining us again on Liberty and Finance.
Great to be here. Thanks again.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for June 17th through June 24th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Ital Preziosi Silver Kilo bars at just $1.79 over spot per ounce. We also have a highly limited supply of 1/10-ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.